And welcome to the Regional Transport Committee. First thing I would like to do is ask Api if he could set us alight with a karakia, please.
Muri ora tātou, nā reira, he mihi mai o hā kia koutou katoa, ko tai mai, i tēnei ata. Nā reira, kane te mihi kia koutou ngā memba o tēnei roku, waka kotahi o te kauni hera arohe o Tamataua Māui. Nā reira nau mai haere mai i runga nei o tēnei kaupapa o tā rānei. Nā reira tēnā koutou, huri no kia ora tātou katoa. Nā reira ki noi tātou. Nōre klori ki te atua, maunga rongo ki te whenua whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Angai e te atua, e nā kau hau i roto ki tēnā ki tēnā o mātou, waka tōngia te wairua tapu, hei a whina, hei tohu i a mātou mahi katoa, ko ihu praiti hoki tō mātou ariki. Amen.
The first thing we need to do today, committee, is decide who's going to be chair. Martin is meant to be coming online and he was going to propose that I chair. But because Martin's not here and the deputy chair's not here, it becomes a decision of the council. Of the committee. So if somebody would like to nominate myself as chair, thank you, Kate. Seconder, Craig. We don't have a.
Second.
Oh yes, second. Thank you, Keith. Put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
We just have a look at our quorum. 1, 2.
So we have got our 4.
Yeah.
So to confirm, we need a quorum of 4, which we have with Kate, Keith, Lisa, and myself.
Hopefully with Martin and...
Hopefully Martin and Craig will
Right, we'll come online shortly.
join in. We have some apologies. I have apologies for lateness from Ange Hallett of Police. And Peter?
We also have apologies from Linda Stewart from NZTA, and Lisa is here on her behalf today. And
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
And Bridget Wilson from Te Pata Ora.
Right. And online we have Jag and Mike Hardy. Conflicts of interest. Way I prefer to deal with it is the individual members take ownership of any potential conflict that they have. Moving on to confirmation of the minutes. This meeting I attended via Zoom and picked up that I would like to have in the regional transport plan commentary around that all of the trek work done on our state highways is picked up in the regional transport plan. And Martin's going to speak, Bryce is going to speak to that after we've heard the submitters. I'm still happy to confirm the minutes as a true and accurate record. Somebody like to second that, please? Thank you, Kate. Put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. A next item for the committee to decide on is a request for a late submission. A copy of it is in front of you and there will be another sheet giving a quick summary. But essentially, due to the value of these entities that are submitting, the importance of the route and the time-critical nature of what they're requesting, I have recommended to the committee that we do receive this late submission. And also we receive him as a speaker, as our last speaker today. So I put that, I recommend that as a mover. Is there a seconder?
Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
Have we had any other late applications?
I mean, have we generally had them?
Have we turned someone down for being late?
This is the first one in that camp.
First and only? Okay, thank you.
I would expect any late submissions still to come through and for it to be the committee's decision whether to accept them or not.
So can you hear me, Chair?
We can, thank you. Craig?
Yeah, I'm just having difficulties here. I'm trying to get back in on my iPhone, but quite often there needs to be a really good reason why you'd receive a late submission, because then it makes it really unfair on others who probably may have submitted at the deadline and thought, no, I'm too late.
Okay, Craig, the reason I give is because of the value and importance of the businesses behind the submission. The submission speaks to an alternate route from Bayview to Wairoa, excluding the Devil's Elbow, and the entities behind it include Stevie's, Stevenson's Transport, Farmers Transport, AFCO AFCO New Zealand, Leaderbrand, Ovation, Medallion Foods. Those are the ones I remember.
That's all good. So I think if you do accept it, you need to say that this isn't normal, and I would hope that there's not others out there that might come to us afterwards saying, well, actually, we would have been. So we just need to be prepared that that there could be others that it could be as important as well. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Craig. We'll make sure that the relevant information is noted. In the
Hey, I'm still trying to get on my iPhone. Can you see me up there? I've got someone.
So,
I'm in the waiting room.
Little, I think you should leave the link you're on and then we'll open up a new one, accept your new one.
Okay, send a new one for both, please. Yeah, and something's going wrong anyway.
Thank you, Craig. And Morena, welcome, Martin. Lovely to see you. Because you joined us late, we already have, I've already assumed chair and been voted by the committee, and we've also already voted to receive a late submission.
So now he's muted. You want to unmute
Welcome.
him?
Mute.
Martin, unfortunately, we can't hear you.
I think he's on mute.
Apologies
Oh,
apologies for lateness. And I've got 3 devices here, and I couldn't get a single one of them to make the link work. So that has now been resolved. Morena koutou, and aroha mai for being late.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you're underway.
Thank you. If you can turn up your volume at your end, we will be struggling to hear you. Okay, I'll leave it with this team. Right, are there any other notices or business before we hear our submitters?
So did we vote to accept that submission, in fact?
I didn't do that?
No.
Okay.
We discussed it.
We discussed it. I'm happy to move. Kate, second. Any further discussion? Put that, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Carried. And Alistair will be coming in as our last speaker to that late submission. At the end of the submitters, we'll then have some time just to have a quick discussion. It's not a decision-making point, but making sure that we cover any additional areas that we may wish the staff to consider. So let's move to our first submitter, which is Lisa from NZTA here on behalf of Linda. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
All submitters today have 10 minutes. And within that 10 minutes, if needed, if you can leave time for questions from us.
That was going to be my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is this one? Oh,
Yeah. And just to the staff, is there somebody that is a timekeeper? Or has that come to the chair?
I can do that.
Ah, thank you. That's what I was hoping somebody would say.
I need a power now.
Okay. Lisa, the floor's yours when you're ready.
Great, thank you.
Just before you start, sorry, just to clarify, can those that are online, Martin and Craig in particular, can you see the presentation that Lisa has online, on screen?
No, I can't.
No, I can see a screen in front of Lisa from behind, but
1 moment, caller.
not on share screen.
Okay, presentation front. Okay.
Should have got pigeons. Pigeons.
Yep.
Yep.
All good now?
Okay, thank you. Cheers, Lisa.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Lisa Muldy, Acting Regional Manager of System Design at Waka Kotahi, based here in Napier. We did provide a submission as the State Highway Investment Proposal was not complete prior to the RLTP process, and so Just to be aware, we have sent through a spreadsheet of activities to be included to officers, and this is general information on your behalf to be aware of what the general changes have been. So I won't speak in detail. There's a lot of slides in here, but generally I just want to be sure you're aware of some of the high-level content. As you may have heard, there has been a shift in maintenance operations and renewals and a very targeted focus in that space. It is a continuous program and is not prioritized, and updates will be provided at a later date on what has been included in the program once the GPS is finalized alongside the activity class allocations. But generally speaking, this just gives you information on the approach. There's also the State Highway Pothole Prevention Activity class that runs alongside this, which you would have heard the government speaking on behalf of improving response times to potholes on the network. Did want to touch on the roads of national significance. The key message here is early wins on the Hawke's Bay Expressway are in wave 1, and we are in the project initiation stage. The extent of the early wins is from Taradale Road to Pakafai Links Roundabout, covering approximately 6 kilometers of that section. There's a large focus on value for money in the safety improvement space. You'll see when I get to the last slide that these activities are being reviewed currently based on the allocation in the current activity class and the government direction, so we may not have specific details on the activities in the Hawke's Bay area. However, the State Highway 5 Napier to Taupo work that was part of the previous business case is included in the State Highway Improvement Plan. And generally speaking, the guidance from the GPS and the government has been a high focus on cost-effective ways of making our roads safer, delivering on value for money, and effective and efficient activity on the network. Obviously, there's a lot of work happening in the recovery and rebuild space. I know this is a very light touch on that information. However, a majority of the track activities were nationally prioritized in the recovery program, and the top 20 activities in that program were included in the SHIP. So that does include all the major sites that you would expect to see in the list that are currently in the recovery stage with track, and there are then also the business cases which will build the case for investment for rebuild, which would improve the level of service in those major sites. There is also minor resilience enhancements along State Highway 38, focusing on retaining access between Wairoa and Waikaremoana. So just a high-level overview. I know that this is a little fast and furious and a lot of content to digest. However, there aren't a lot of significant changes from the draft State Highway Improvement Plan to this current version. Again, most of the activities you would expect to see under the cyclone rebuild are included, as are committed improvement activities at the bottom of the list. There are a number of proposed improvement activities that are also currently included, and we will just have to see what happens once the GPS is finalized, as well as those activity class allocations. So lastly, I just wanted to focus on, I ran through and did an analysis of the draft versus the final version, and this is the key summary of changes. I would note the major changes are the removal of 2 walking and cycling connections on state highways. They were included from our region and moderated at the board level on alignment with the GPS. And so I just wanted everyone to be aware of those changes, as they are significant, and our rural communities will want to know that's the case. There are also minor changes in activities that are still included to phasing, costing, and timing. A lot of this, again, is related to those activity classes and the amount of funding available, and also scheduling purposes. One unknown is the speed and infrastructure program. So the program is being updated and further assessment is needed. And I have listed those projects that were previously in that activities. So I know that's short and sweet and a lot of information, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there questions firstly from the committee? Martin, can I hand to you for your questions first, please?
Yeah, thank you. Look, that was fast and furious. The essential question I have is related to the written submission from the Transport Agency, and what you've just highlighted, for example, in relation to the Waipawa Bridge crossing, which is one of our top 10 projects. And the question is, to what extent do we actually need to change our RLTP as a result of the realignment of the ship with the GPS? I mean, can we still continue to keep projects in that are dear to the hearts of the Waipawa community, for example, even if they're not in the State Highway Investment Proposal? Just exactly how much do we need to be in exact alignment with the revised SHIP?
Through you, Chair, you are welcome to continue to keep these activities in your RLTP. It is simply noting that it has been removed from the SHIP. So obviously, you know, in order to get funding at a later date, you will want activities in your RLTP. So if the RTC chooses to keep those included, you're welcome to do so.
Just thank you, Chair. Okay, so I just had a quick follow-up, Mayor Little, if I may. Do I understand that the opportunity for multimodal development of the expressway is reduced as a result of the SHIP, and it's now basically off the table as a result of the GPS, or is there any implication there for the way we frame that project in our RLTP?
In ensuring that we deliver efficient and effective delivery and value for money, the current scope of that project is specific to 4-laning of that 6-kilometer extent of the expressway.
Make sure the staff liaise closely with Lisa, and for the deliberations report, detail any changes that need to be made at that level as a consequence of the submission and the amended SHIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That's wise advice. Mayor Little?
Yeah, just like Tautoko what Martin said.
Question? Kate?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Just initially, obviously, I'm from Central Hawke's Bay, so the State Highway 2 Waipawa Bridge is gutting to see that removed, or potentially removed from the RLTP, whatever that result is. Does NZTA have a view on does stranded asset play a part in that decision, and the fact that in the Waipawa one in particular, there's a cycleway going all the way to a State Highway 2 bridge that is not safe for those cyclists and walkers, no protection. Does that stranded asset type situation come into that decision at all?
From my understanding, the decision was specifically based on alignment with the GPS. I will note that we provided the draft point of entry document, that we've previously done a reasonable amount of work on the Waipawa Bridge in particular. That was provided, however, it was strictly on alignment with the GPS, and our funding and our activities have to align with the government direction and the policy statement.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for your presentation.
Yep, thank you.
I'll move to the next one. I'd like to welcome Federated Farmers, Jim Galloway. Welcome, Jim. You've been here before, 10 minutes. Please allow time for questions.
Good morning, Chair and Committee, and thank you for hearing Federated Farmers on behalf of our members today. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the vast improvement in the acknowledgement that rural roads are hugely important to our community in this plan compared to the last one. So that's a really great thing. So that was really nice to see, because they are literally our lifelines, from emergency services to personal getting around, our trade of products to and from businesses in town and to the markets around the world. We have no option but to use those roads. There is a vast number of people living in the rural area and working off farm in urban or in different areas, so they need to be able to get to their places of work, and that's increasing as more the financial of farming has been reduced and more people are looking to work off farm to supplement income. Poor roads not only affect people and businesses, but they are an animal welfare issue. The longer it takes to get to market for animals, the more stress on them, and because drivers' hours can run out and those sorts of things. So if it takes an hour and a half longer to get somewhere, it has a market effect on where those animals can go or what can happen with them. Maintenance, substandard maintenance leads to more damage. I don't think I'm telling you that, but especially about water. You know, keeping culverts and water tables and those sorts of things clear and maintained is just vital, because if that's not done, you can get a lot more damage than you should get. When it comes to major repairs and improvements, delays seem to be very long, especially to the people that haven't had the access that they have enjoyed in the past and have the roads that they don't enjoy driving on for long times. So whether it's delays in decision making to make the original decision, or is it delays because of red tape? Some of that is in the room, some of it's out the room, and I think that's where we need to encourage people to get through the red tape a lot quicker. The productivity of the gangs and people working on the roads. I know some of them, if I had them working on my farm, they wouldn't be there very long, because they seem to sit around a hang of a lot, even though, and whether it's planning, the gear isn't there on time so they can get on to the next job, whether it's just, as one farmer said, they should be working for Fonterra because they're milking it. So then whether that comes down to oversight by the councils or NZTA or whoever is overseeing that works it. But that's very important, because it's an optics as much as anything, because in the amount of times I get told they go past some roadworks, there's 2 people on stop go, 1 person looking and working and 4 looking at them. And those sorts of things, really frustrate people. There might be good reasons, but it doesn't look that way and so often. The one example of that was a digger that had to be unloaded. The digger turned up on the back of the transporter. He waited for about 3/4 of an hour. The person turned up with some road cones, put them out, unloaded the digger, packed them up, and they all went away. And that was all that had to be done, was unload the digger. And it seemed to take an age and a lot of expense for something pretty simple. There must be a better way of doing it without compromising safety. The Wairoa-Napier State Highway 2 is a vital trade route and other access route, without which without a really good State Highway 2, one of the goals of the HBRC and the area is to develop into a better food production and develop that Wairoa and Gisborne as well into a better productivity area. It has the potential, it just needs access as one of the major restrictions on that, because people don't have confidence to spend money and develop if they can't get their product to market regularly and on time at a reasonable cost. At the moment, that road is costing a truck and trailer about $600 to $700 more to get to on a return trip down to Hawke's Bay. So it's a very real economic impact. There's a lot of mention of resilience in the plan, so I hope that is taken seriously and any repairs aren't just repairs to putting it back like it was. And like we do on our farms, the culvert is put back as a bigger one and better constructed to handle more vehicles, more weather, more everything. So that's the basis of our submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions firstly from the committee in the room?
I just have one clarification.
You're welcome, Mayor Little. Please proceed.
Just, you mentioned red tape Rukaturi Bridge. It wasn't red tape that held that bridge up. It was continued weather events. So if you could remove that from your submission, please, because that's pretty unfair.
Thank you.
Questions, Lisa from NZTA.
For you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just curious what your specific request is in reference to the RLTP, which is what we're having the hearing about today.
Getting value for money, you mentioned it in your report, is one of the things, and so I'm not quite sure, you know, we can't influence how that's done, but that's where the councils, the NZTA, you have that influence on that, making sure that people are doing the job in a timely, economic and productive manner is one of the main things that people want to see, because it costs everyone a lot of money, us with rates and tax, and so, you know, we need to get value for that money. So that's one of the things there, and getting good roads that can do what they are supposed to do, get people and products from place to place.
Thank you.
Can I just say one more comment?
Carry on, Mayor Little.
I'd just like to say, I should have said, it's a good submission and a lot of your comments are pretty well what people are saying out there, and no doubt we'll be getting it at LPT time, you know, long-term plan time. So thank you. It's frustrating.
Thank you, Craig. Martin.
Oh, look, yes, I was just, good morning, Jim. I was just picking up on what Ria said in the written submission. You're really highlighting to us that you support, as I understand it, the greater emphasis on the rural road network, its importance to our economy, the focus on resilience and maintenance that's in the plan, perhaps to a greater extent than has been recognised in previous plans. That seems to be the gist of it.
Yes, thank you, and we do recognise it, and it was a really vast improvement on the last plan, which hardly even mentioned a rural at all.
Yeah. All right. No, thank you. That's clear. I just wanted to make sure that that's the message you were leaving us with.
Thank you. No further questions? Any questions? Oh, just actually to the committee as a whole. Are you happy to have questions from our advisory panel as opposed to just from the committee itself? As chair, I'm very happy. I think it adds to the complexity of the discussions. That's lovely. Any questions, therefore, from the advisory panel members? Online? That's lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Thank you for your presentation from Federated Farmers.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome Guy Wellwood. Good morning, Guy. Lovely to see you. You've been here before. You've got 10 minutes. Please save some time for some questions at the end. And do you believe we are right on the time button? Doing good, team.
Early days.
Early days.
Thank you for your welcome, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. You have my brief response to the consultative document. I do support a new bridge over the Waikari Gorge and have done so ever since it was first suggested about 20 years ago. To me, it is just another Matahurua Gorge type project, and the good people of Wairoa deserve it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think you know what I'm going to talk about. I've been here before. I've read the draft plan, and I've read Councillor Williams' recent article in Hawke's Bay today, which he entitled, "Hawke's Bay Transport System is Largely Broken, but Here is How We Fix It." Martin, I hear your clarion call to do something different and to take note of the special issues we have here in Hawke's Bay, some of which are good and some are bad. Nature has been very kind to us, but not all the time. Just proposing to spend $5 billion to fix up the roads is not very visionary. For a start, we've not got $5 billion, and no one is going to give it to us. We've had our billions from the government in recent times. We're not going to get it again, even if it was there to have. We can manage without a Brookfields Bridge. We should not be considering State Highway 5 beyond Te Harato, nor State Highway 38 beyond Ruatahuna. Consideration should be just within regional boundaries, and we should certainly not be considering putting more lanes on the expressway. The cost would be enormous, probably twice what is estimated. Disruption during building would be enormous, and once it's all finished, perhaps a decade away, trucks will quickly wreck it. We're going to get a lot more climatic damage, and we have to get used to that, and we have to get used to slips and potholes. We have to slow down on the roads and be more vigilant. There are too many cars on Hawke's Bay roads, and building more lanes for the expressway just encourages more cars and more heavy trucks, which means more congestion, accidents and pollution. And what do you do then? Build even more roads? No, there has to be a better way, and there is. It is called rail transport, and that is what I want to talk about for 5 minutes. Rail provides a solution and a choice for passengers and freight. We have a railway line running from the bottom of the region, let's call it Takapau, to the top of our region, let's call it New Haka. I've travelled the length of the line several times. The line is underutilised. Last year I rode in the cab of a freight train from Woodville to Napier Port. 1,400 tonnes of pulp and timber that came from Karioi near Waihuru. What is 1,400 tonnes? Well, it's 35 big trucks. If this big train can come from Karioi twice a week, then think of all the other trains, passenger and freight, that could run on that line from places even further away. And I'm thinking Hamilton, a major rail junction. You'll have all read the draft GPS on land transport. I did, and I've made a submission on behalf of FRONZ, the Federation of Rail Organisations of New Zealand, of which I'm an executive member. The GPS promotes rail in the Golden Triangle and in the Auckland and Wellington metro areas, but nowhere else. The main trunk line from Hamilton to Palmerston and the line from Palmerston up the east coast, just out there, is in jeopardy. I want you, the Regional Transport Committee, to work for the retention of rail transport in Hawke's Bay and for better utilisation of that mode of transport. I want to help you in that process because I think it's good for Hawke's Bay, for its economy, for the well-being of its people, 30% of whom do not own or drive cars, for the environment and for the climate. And by climate, I mean the obligations of Hawke's Bay citizens as world citizens to do our bit and to meet international obligations which our political masters have entered into on our behalf. You and your predecessors of the committee have had a decade from me and from others on the benefits of rail, and I'm sure you're convinced anyway. So I'm not going to talk about Gisborne anymore. Gisborne is over, I think, but let us work on getting the line open to New Haka. It's outrageous that the line has not been repaired. The Hawke's Bay Regional Council invested $6 million of its ratepayers' money in that line, and that money should not be wasted. Rail has its problems, big problems, and I assume you've not mentioned it much in your draft plan because all your efforts have got you nowhere. No one from KiwiRail here today. No, the problem is KiwiRail, and I'm asking you to help me get them out of Hawke's Bay. They did a good job after Gabrielle fixing up their bridges in Waipawa and Awatoto, but look at what else they have done or not done. They are reluctant, inefficient operators in Hawke's Bay. I want the tracks to be taken off KiwiRail and passed over to NZTA. I want open access on the tracks for passenger and freight services, because I know that other operators have the money, the expertise, the locos and the rolling stock to run profitable rail services, passengers and freight. I want this committee to start demonising the car and the truck and thinking more about active transport, public transport and rail, and all must work together. We're talking about a plan and a vision, and it does not have to happen in a hurry. We can hasten slowly and carefully. We're looking at mood change as well as mode change and working together. Every other country in the world is believing in rail as the future transport for freight and passengers. Why not New Zealand? Or better still, why not Hawke's Bay? I've access to a lot of technical and financial information on rail. I'm happy to help the committee or the regional council staff. Thank you for the opportunity to talk this morning.
Good, thank you, Guy. Firstly, can we have a copy
Yes,
of
yep,
that?
yep, I'll
That
give
would be
you that.
great.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hand to Craig Little first, if you've got any questions, Craig. You're on mute.
Just one simple question, really, Guy. After being to Europe, there's a big focus on rail and that, and obviously they have the populations, and I travel the trains quite a bit. But if the question came down to fixing State Highway 2 from Wairau to Napier and using part of that corridor, how would we prioritise moving forward if that was a really good option for Wairau and putting more passing lanes in it? And that's where we find ourselves at the moment.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Craig. Obviously, I'm not against fixing the road from Napier to Wairau. And I'm certainly suggesting the new bridge over the gorge, which is, I think, the number one option in the plan and is expensive, but needs to be done. I'm not so sure that we can fix the Devil's Elbow, for instance. And I think that should be sort of something for the future. As far as the rail goes, 95% of it and the most difficult parts and some wonderful viaducts are there already. We're just talking about the other 5%. And I think the tracks should be relayed at the S Valley end, and they should be relayed at New Haka. And I think Hawke's Bay and this committee should be very concerned that that hasn't happened. The rest of the track is fine. It's there already, is really my answer.
Thank you, Guy. So, Martin, did you want to ask a question or make a comment regarding our upcoming investigation of the rail corridor?
Yes, that was the point I wanted to make. Thank you, Chair. Just to note, Guy, to thank you again for your consistent championing of the rail cause. You're pushing on an open door from my point of view, but the difficulty you appreciate is the funding and legislative model. Just to let you know that Mayor Little and I, and are you coming as well, Tanya, I think? We're going up we're basically doing a helicopter traverse of the Napier to Wairau rail line on Wednesday next week. Daniel Hedifink's taking us, and my understanding is that there are 400 damaged sites. There's a major program of work needed to get that up and running. But just to say that we haven't forgotten it, and thank you again for your passion and your commitment to this part of the overall transport system.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Guy. That's the end of your 10 minutes. Welcome. Lovely to see you as always.
Thank you very much.
Committee, our next submitter is from Genesis Energy. Is Mairi available?
Yes, kia ora.
Nice. Welcome. The floor is yours. You have 10 minutes, and please leave a little time at the end for us to ask questions.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm here today on behalf of Genesis. I've also got online Ross McDonald, who's the site manager for the Waikato Moana Power Scheme. I wanted to thank you firstly for the opportunity to submit on the draft RLTP and the opportunity to speak today. I won't go through our submission, it's fairly brief anyway, but I did want to highlight a couple of points and then give Ross an opportunity just to explain what matters to Genesis in terms of the road transport network. I would like to acknowledge the mahi undertaken by the councils in Waka Kotahi in the aftermath of Cyclone Gabrielle. There's been a huge amount of work completed. I know there's still quite a lot to go. And as we continue through that work and move into operations and renewals, there's going to be a range of different drivers and priorities. And as Genesis, we just want to highlight the importance of the Waikato Moana Power Scheme to the resilience of the region. There was a period post-Cyclone Gabrielle where the power scheme was the only major electricity source for quite a large area and therefore played quite a critical role in the recovery. For us to continue to operate, maintain and upgrade the power scheme, we need to be able to access the site. So it kind of follows that safe and efficient access to the scheme is also fairly critical for the resilience of the region as a whole. And we're really just asking that that's kept in mind when prioritising projects and funding. And that's all I wanted to say, so I'll just pass on to Ross now just to give a quick overview of some of the routes and roads that are particularly important to Genesis.
Oh, good morning, everybody.
Morena.
Morning. Yeah, so Marty's covered off at a high level the main reasons that we need a good road infrastructure here for the ongoing maintenance and with upcoming projects here to make sure that our assets are in a good state to be able to keep supplying the power to the region and to the wider NZ. We do struggle with roads. They do vary on weather dependent, and Gabriel was a very fine example of that. Just some of the big things that we've got coming up. Well, I'll step back. We've just completed a big outage here, 3-year program, bringing in loads from overseas that have to be trucked in here. These loads vary right up to 65 tonne, and we've got ongoing projects right out to 2030. Next one starting 26, 27. Up at Kaitawa, once again, we'll be bringing in big loads, 35 through to 45, 50 tonne. These trucks are just not your standard trucks. They're quite big trucks. During Gabriel, with the Napier Whitehall Road, the state it was in, they had to be diverted around through the Waiweka Gorge. They did get through, but as we know, that gorge is probably not one of the most reliable routes. Locally, we just need to access our stations both upstream and downstream of the Tuai Power Station here. Sealing of the road, or the completion of the sealing of the road up to Onipoto would be very beneficial for us. It's one of our biggest hazards is travelling on the roads. When we have tourists on those roads, there's no white lines, they're not sealed, and a lot of those people that travel on those roads are used to driving on the opposite side of the road, which doesn't help when you meet them. So that's pretty much what I have. You've mentioned about the electricity that goes to Wairoa, Gisborne and up the East Cape. That all has to go through our switchyard here. So we do need to get service providers here if anything goes wrong to deal with the Transpower equipment up there. So there's another reason that the roading infrastructure is very critical to our plant and running. Thank you.
Ora, thank you very much for quite a clear submission on what your requirements are. Mayor Little, did you want to lead questions on this, given the challenges for your council and co-funders?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, totally tautoko what Roscoe and Maya has said. The road's a really difficult one because we've lost our way, or NZTA have, as who the road belongs to, and who we know who the stakeholders are, but we seem to be giving people that shouldn't be maintaining roads the authority over us. So it's quite difficult because we maintain the special purpose part and parts of the highway under different contracts and that. So we in the quick history is we had money to get it to Onipoto, and that was vetoed, unfortunately, at the last minute. So we lost about 26 million of PGF funding. So somehow this Transport Committee needs to probably let an NZTR sitting in the room that the road actually is a road corridor. It's a legal road and it belongs to the country and for the betterment of our country. So it doesn't seem to be going that way. And understand you, Ross. It's an important business. You have people working there, and I do understand that. When I travel that road quite a bit, people do drive on the wrong side of the road and not the road to do that on. So that's me.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
I just had a question. I had a question of staff, really, whether there would be any merit, firstly, in the discussion of the importance of the rural road network and the road network generally in keeping us connected, critical lifelines, that sort of thing. Some specific reference to this type of scenario, if not this scenario specifically, might usefully be added to that section. Just a thought there. That's question one. Question two, is there anything in the works program that's appended to or inherent to our RLTP that addresses this road corridor in particular in terms of future upgrading or maintenance?
Thank you. Is somebody able to answer that now, or would you like to answer that at the end of the submissions?
I think we can talk.
Even in deliberations report would be fine, but just really signalling that that's information we want.
For you, Chair, to just get clarity, are we referring to State Highway 38?
Yeah, can somebody?
Yeah, State Highway 38, Wairoa to Onopoto is certainly the area that we're quite interested in.
Okay, and so just to follow up on that, there are two activities for pre-implementation and implementation on State Highway 38. I believe this is a continuation of the work that was previously done as part of the business case for the tar pitch oil seal. In addition, the Frasertown Bridge is in the maintenance, operations, and renewal category.
Thank you, Lisa.
Tanya, I've just got my hand up again.
Thank you. Proceed.
We've spoken about this road for so many years, as long as I've been around this table, and we haven't really progressed. The only progress we've done is stuff that Wairau District Council did under the radar and didn't call it tar seal, we called it road improvements. I think it would be really good if the Transport Committee one day maybe had a meeting up in Wairoa and then we went up to the summit to understand what this road is. Unless you travel it, you don't know. And just the frustrations, and that even the tar pitch oil, it might be successful, it hasn't been up to date, but once again that pretty well carries on, and we're a roading authority and we don't have anything really to do with it. So I think it would be good to see the politics of this road.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I think we'll stop because today's not about the debate, but really about hearing from the submitters and
debating.
Clarification.
It's about understanding.
Yeah. So that's a good challenge that you have laid down for us. Thank you.
Fully support it.
9 minutes.
Looking forward to coming up.
One further question from, we have time for one further question? No. Mairi and Roscoe, thank you very much for your submission. It's very clearly articulated what you're looking for from us. Thank you very much.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Craig, you've still got your hand up. Did you need to follow up?
No, I didn't know. She'll put the hand down, but if we do go up there, we can have lunch at home here.
Thank you. Moving on, next submitter number 24, Carl Goodchild. Morena, welcome. Thank you. As you've heard, we have 10 minutes. And if you can, leave some time at the end for us to ask questions.
Certainly can.
The floor is yours.
Hey, thank you all for having me here today and letting us all submit. I'd just like to address the public transport part of the RLTP between the Napier and Hastings. After reading the document, it shows that we have roughly halved from around 800,000 to 400,000 users of public transport in recent years. This has been put down to irregular bus services, driver shortages, bus delays due to congestion on the expressway. To combat this, RLTP proposes to change this in 2025 with an additional 4 to 6 million per annum to enable to improve higher frequency bus network connecting Napier and Hastings urban areas. This money coming from current commuters, commercial opportunities and government funding as stated at bottom of the page 98. After having spoken to, or written to the Minister for Transport, Simeon Brown, and speaking with Katie Nimmin, the current government have no plans to fund concession fares as the last government did, so this leaves commercial opportunities and current bus users to fund this. I suspect most of this cost will ultimately fall on the current bus users. Currently, buses are cancelled by driver shortages or delayed by expressway being congested. This is what has caused everyone to stop using buses and return to their vehicles in droves, even though there were discounted fares on offer under the funding from the previous government, which in turn has created more congestion. By throwing 4 to 6 million at this issue, this will not solve it with more buses and more frequency of buses. The only way to solve this problem of unreliable buses, which drove people away, is to, in my opinion, the following points. 1, have well-paid bus drivers with enough bus drivers to cover sicknesses and other reasons why people take off days at short notice. Have a double-laned expressway to make current congestion stop. Have flexibility in the system for a backup on alternative routes between Napier and Hastings made available to drivers should the expressway be closed due to accidents or other reasons. Example would, they would use the coastal route on the days that the bus users, on the days allowing bus users to get to their destinations on time. This will give them give confidence to the bus users that they will get to their destination on time, and more people will come back to the public transport system. As implementing of a double-laned expressway will take some time, I would suggest in the short term concentrate on my points 1 and 3. If by raising costs to the current users, as will happen on May the 1st this year, it will more likely come in the future, as it will ultimately drive more people back to their cars. Now, I'd like to thank Martin, if he's around. Online, is he?
Online?
Online.
I can see his face behind you.
There he is. Hello, Martin. I'd like to thank Martin because recently the fares were going up for 5-year-olds right through the age range, all the way up to adults. We're going up to $3 a fare, and this has now been sorted out, and I thank Martin for all his work he's done on that. So I'll probably leave that part of my submission, just take that as read. So my suggestion to the Transport Committee would not to try and put more buses on the road and improve frequency of buses in the network. Instead, make the current system more efficient, as there is no point putting more buses on the road if no one is using them due to the increased costs, which everyone will suffer. And I think in 2025 this will be reviewed again, and probably fares will go up again. So to achieve this goal, we need to have a reliable bus network that runs on time at a reasonable cost to the users to make them leave their cars at home. And if this means discounted fares in the short term, then that is what is needed to get more people using buses. Once more people are using the service, it will eventually start paying for itself instead of the running at a loss. In the meantime, less congestion means far more productivity for the region, which helps pay for any discounted or concession fares. I would also like to address the rail link that is for consideration to be realigned with the expressway. I believe this is a great idea and it needs to be planned for the future, but there is currently no reason why we can't utilise the current rail link between Napier and Hastings in the short term to reduce pressure on our road network for passengers. In closing, public transport has to be reliable and cost efficient for it to be feasible for the public to use. I do not think that the proposed plan does this and relies on the thought that bigger is better no matter the cost to the user. Let's just concentrate on the basics of what we have now and get it right. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Carl.
Any questions?
So from me, that real focus of clarity with the existing bus services, it's not about having more buses, but actually having less buses that are resilient, on time, effective, always there. When you go out, you expect the 9:03, it's there at 9:03.
100%, but in the proposal, they're proposing to put on more buses, which I don't think is anyway going to solve the problem. I mean, if the buses aren't running on time due to congestion now, throwing more buses at the system is just going to put more buses in a parking lot on the expressway.
Yeah. And just to clarify, are you a bus user?
My children are. And as an example, my boys went to come home from school yesterday and the bus didn't turn up.
Yeah.
So they had to catch the next one. And this is just showing, and this is happening on daily, if not weekly basis, that, buses aren't showing up on time. And this drives users away from the system. And unless we get that right in the first place, without putting more buses on or or more frequency of buses, people won't come back to the system.
Thank you, Carl. Questions from the team online? Martin?
Thank you, Carl. Just to say, firstly, though, it really was a credit to the staff for managing to navigate through the removal of government subsidies in the face of everything else they've had to deal with in terms of escalating costs and maintain a concession fare for, school-aged children. So I really want to make sure that credit actually lands where it's probably primarily due, although I was involved in the conversation. But just a question, an observation. Through much of the period over which that patronage has declined, we actually had no driver shortage issues, and we had reduced fares from about 2019 when they first came in. They were decreased to try and increase patronage, and everything we tried to do within the service range that we've got, it didn't seem to make a jot of difference. So just to let you know that there seem to be a range of factors here, Carl, and we've got very strong advice that more frequent buses, but ones which do turn up on time, will be critical to getting people out of their cars. So but the thoughts you are sharing have been very important ones to us, so I thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree, Martin, and I think regular buses and on-time buses are the key there.
Thank you. I have a question from Kate Taylor.
Yeah, thank you for your submission. Slightly left field, perhaps, but do you, given you've put quite a lot of thought into the buses from an urban point of view, do you have any thoughts, and the answer could be no, on the commuter bus passenger service that's being mooted from Central Hawke's Bay to Napier and Hastings?
I don't really know enough about that to speak on it. I haven't used that service, so I'd have to say no.
We don't have that service currently. No.
Are there any other questions? Carl, Martin? No. Carl, a very thorough and well thought out submission. Thank you. It's very clear what you would like us to consider. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Right, moving on, team. The next submitter, James Smith. Oh, no, sorry. Graham Muller. Graham, available? Welcome. Submission 94, page 49.
That's what we've got planned for 225. What are you responding is what we've got planned for 225.
And welcome, Angela. Saw you sneak in earlier. Lovely to see you. Good morning, Graham. The floor is yours. You have 10 minutes, but leave a little time at the end for questions.
Yeah, I'm a member of SHNEG, which is the St. Columba Church and Havelock environmental group. And the concern is that, what my concern is, congestion is a problem during morning and evening rush hour. Outside these hours, traffic flows relatively freely. Is the enormous cost justified adding an additional 2 lanes in an attempt to reduce congestion and increase traffic flow for only a few hours? We're looking at something like $800 or $900 million, which is a lot of money being spent on putting in additional roads for cars when we're trying to reduce the number of cars on our roads, because we need to reduce the carbon footprint to start with. But what's the solution? Well, one of them could be carpooling. We could have certain allocated drop-off points and collection points where motorists leave their cars, and it would prove beneficial in reducing congestion, as well as reduce the carbon footprint. Public transport. I grew up in Papatoetoe in South Auckland, and if you know the Great South Road, that was the only link between Auckland and the southern towns, and I think it was a military link, a military road when it was first put in. And the southern motorway was not in existence in those days, and the transport was virtually by train for us. I was fortunate I could walk to the Papatoetoe railway station and catch a train into Auckland, and we would all hop off at the old Auckland railway station, which a lot of you will probably know of. And there was a tram first and then the trolley bus, but no, we walked down Quay Street through Queen's Quay. People know where I'm going? If you're an Aucklander, you do. Right. And then you're in the CBD, and you could walk back and catch a train, and they were always running on time. I enjoyed the walk down Quay Street because there was actually a sports shop which sold fish hooks that I could buy, which I couldn't get elsewhere. But anyway, let's not divest there. Public transport. If you've travelled from Masterton to Auckland, Masterton to Wellington by train, you can leave your car at the Masterton railway station and go all the way through. Our Lions clubs have found this quite beneficial because one of them in Masterton has actually tried to gain membership by speaking to the people on board the train, and now they've gathered up enough people to actually join the club, and they have meetings on the train. So it's not a waste of time sitting there. Right. Trains could be reinstated to run between Napier and Hastings with stations available for commuters along the way. For example, it could be stations at Miani and Clive for people to hop on board. There's no longer a railway station in Hastings. My Lions Club actually painted that station, repainted the station, I should say, and now there's only a platform there, which is rather sad. There's a problem with only a single line between Napier and Hastings, but with a synchronised timetable, this could be overcome. And do we need to spend an enormous amount of money on 2 extra lanes on the expressway when we could use rail to start with? We have buses running as well, we've just heard that. But really, we really think about it, if you look at Auckland and its motorways, they're pretty congested, I should say, for a large amount of time, especially mornings and evenings for rush hour. But all that concrete and all that expense, it certainly hasn't solved the problem of transport. They have bus lanes, and they even have a bus. If you're carpooling and you have 2 or more people in your car, you can use a bus lane, which probably gets you into the city a lot quicker than if you. But then, if you look at the number of single, I taught in Johannesburg in South Africa for some time. And my wife and I were fortunate in travelling out of the city. This is many years ago still, out of the city against the traffic flow. The traffic coming into the city was nose to tail way back in those days in the 1970s. What it's like now, I wouldn't like to value, but as an ex-Aucklander, I'm very sympathetic at the time to Mayor Dove Meyer-Robertson, who had a vision for transport which sadly was not undertaken, the development of. I heard someone tell me that it was something in the value of $17 million, which is way back in those days, but it was turned down. It was not accepted, and now Auckland has a real problem, and yeah, but we won't talk about that. We're talking about Hastings and Napier and linking them, and a rail would be, as we've heard from Guy, would be certainly worth considering and saving a huge amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, a very clear submission about what you're seeking from us. I too like the idea of a bus lane and for a carpool, or cars can go on it if they're full. Only problem is on our expressway, we don't have the width to do it, but I do like your thinking. So I'm now going to hand over if there's any questions from others round the table.
Can I just thank Bryce for allowing me, I put a late submission in, and thank you, Bryce, for, in fact, I'm not sure who Bryce is.
This is Bryce here to the left.
Yeah, thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just going to our online, Martin, did you have a question? On mute, mate.
Just a brief comment. Again, thank you, Graham. One of the things, and it's possibly a question Lisa could answer, but I've always wondered why we don't do cost-benefit analysis across modes, like rail versus you're saying that would be better than spending money on the expressway. As a country, we always seem to assume that roads are funded, but rail needs to make a profit. And you know, I'm with you that perhaps there is a savings to the country by investing more at central government in rail than road corridors for some situations. I don't know whether Lisa can comment on the way cost-benefit analysis work across different modes. Is that a thing?
Can maybe we hold that, but I'm conscious of time. We hold that and we'll pick that up. Is that okay, Lisa, once we've finished the submitters? Unless there's a short answer of yes or no?
I guess the short answer would be I probably can't comment on that.
Okay, that's easy then.
It's a real pity, but thank you, Graham, for raising the point.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just say, I had the school at Hicks Bay for 5.5 years, and I had 183 kilometres to go shopping in Gisborne. And that road in those days was in relatively good condition. I can't remember the number of bends, but there were a lot. But the trucks, the logging trucks, have caused a lot of damage to that road, and sadly, there's no rail there. There's no rail link, so we have to carry on trucking, which is really sad because our roads here, and I sympathise with Mayor Little because I also was on emergency staffing at a little school called Puteri, which is up his way.
Yes,
and I had 22 kilometres to go from Raupanga inland, and there were logging trucks coming out of there. But I sympathise with the situation, and I sympathise with the fact that his a Wairua Star after 100 years is no longer.
Yes,
which is really sad.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your submission. I'm going to have to ask the next submitter to come through.
Just a quick
comment, Kate?
No, just a clarification. If the submission is in the meeting papers, it can't have been that late. So
Sorry,
just
through-
wanted to confirm that it was,
Through you, Chair, it was received on the day submissions closed, 10 minutes after the submission close date, so. it
just
wasn't-
with regards to our earlier conversation about late submission, so I'm happy with that, thank you.
It was 10 minutes after the close.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'd like to welcome James Smith on behalf of the National Road Carriers Association. Now, he's coming in online.
Right.
Welcome, James. As you may have heard, you have 10 minutes, and if you could leave a few minutes at the end for questions. The floor is yours.
Certainly can, and welcome, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak to team in Hawke's Bay. So as we put in our submission, our industry effectively is we're the ones that deliver everything the economy needs, and we take away all the stuff you don't want to need. So I just want to point out a couple of points. First of all, our industry is largely mode agnostic. We'll use whatever the most efficient mode is to deliver. So if there's an efficient way to use rail, you'll see freight on rail. If there's an efficient way to use road, you'll see road on freight on road. So couple of from our submission, couple of things I want to expand on. One is the need to increase resilience across the network. That's really been highlighted, and it's quite common across a lot of the regions that have been impacted by changing weather patterns. The need to build back better, which I think was somebody else's comment earlier on. Our friend from Federated Farmers, we have to build back better because building back like it was is not going to work. And I also want to point out that the parts of the network that were actually brought back had resilience work done to them, actually fared up fairly well during Gabrielle. It was actually parts of the network that had not had remedial work that suffered greatly. One of the other challenges I think we also want to highlight is the fact that as the industry decarbonises, there is going to be a need to increase productivity to help pay for it. As Ian would know, who I see sitting there in the bottom left corner, these new trucks are bloody expensive. And so if we can increase the productivity, it'll help the wider economy. So we're very keen to work there. One of the big challenges that I can see that's going to be facing both ourselves and the council is the fact that funding is becoming increasingly difficult. And with the council funding, locally you get 51%, and the rest comes from NZTA. So we are fully supporting the government's drive to look at alternative funding mechanisms for the transport network, because I think that's absolutely critical if we're going to be able to restore balance. So we support your 30-year horizon. I think the lack of long-term planning has been a problem right throughout New Zealand. We tend to do things from budget cycle to budget cycle, and quite often a lot of these big projects actually need a far longer term focus. So we fully support the longer term focus of this plan anyway. Regarding road safety, we're fully supporting of the State Highway 2 Exdale Commercial Vehicle Safety Centre, and that's and also projects such as median barriers and things like that. Anything that improves road safety helps our members because they're negatively impacted by crashes. So really, that's us. We again fully support the projects that you've identified in your long-term plan, and also want to reach out and say, look, if there are things that you think we can assist with the central government, let us know, because there are discussions happening regarding the previous submitters' comments regarding road versus rail. There is actually a mechanism for capital for analysing that. It's not done by NZTA, it's done further up the chain. So, and that work is ongoing. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee members on the floor? to the online, Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Me again. Look, the excellent submission. Thank you, James. I was intrigued and I guess heartened by the comment in there that National Road Carriers supports public transport as a way to actually keep congestion down and free our roads up for freight, which is certainly aligned with, I think, some of the thinking in the long-term plan. Specific question. You need to increase productivity. The trucks are getting expensive, and particularly around decarbonisation. What's the key to increasing productivity of the road network? Is it about travel times, those sorts of things? Is it the efficiency of the network? What did you specifically have in mind when you said that?
Okay, there's a couple of points, Martin. One is structures, clearly, because there's two parts to increase productivity. One is mass that the vehicle can carry, and that's largely impacted by your structures. So the opportunity there, if you're restoring a road, or if you're putting it back, try and build it back better so that you can increase productivity. And then the second thing is just length, and there's work underway with NZTA and Ministry of Transport on looking at those lengths, and utilising better technology to get better fit to road. And again, Ian is well versed in that, having been part of earlier trials at getting increased productivity. So if you can get more onto fewer vehicles, you get a far better outcome. And as New Zealand as a whole, we have to get off the bottom of the OECD when it comes to productivity. It's not good that we're stuck at the bottom. Now the other one with someone mentioned earlier about bus lanes and congestion charging. There is work underway regarding time of use charging, which is a means to encourage people that do have a choice to travel out of peak, and we're encouraging that to be not just an Auckland project, because if you get the technology right, there's no reason why it can't be rolled out elsewhere. To take that discretionary traveller and put them into less congested time, you can save yourself quite a bit of money there.
Thank you very much.
Answer the question?
Wonderfully well. Thank you, James.
So, James, just to clarify, that technology referred to was time and choice?
Time of use charging, yes. So now, as you would have noticed in the government position statement for transport, there is going to be a strong move towards shifting away from fuel excise duty to road user charges, and that will be also combined with a strong incentive to not do that via a paper-based system, but to an electronic. As soon as you introduce electronic road pricing, you can then start getting very creative. That's something that will be develop over the next 10 years, I suspect.
Thank you, James. Any further questions? Thank you very much, James.
Okay.
Once again, very clear submission. I wish we had the money to be able to do the very simple things you aspire us to do, because I agree, we do need to get off the bottom of that OECD ladder.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, James. Next submitter is Carol Ann Gard. Welcome, Carol. You two have been here before, so you know how we roll. You have 10 minutes and leave a few questions at the end for us to ask, a bit of time at the end for us to ask you questions. The floor's yours, Carol.
Good morning, my name is Carol Ann Gard. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all today about the challenges that myself and others in the community experience with transport in the Hawke's Bay region. Thank you for giving the disabled community the opportunity to use the My Way service. I would encourage HBRC to still have the My Way service operating in the Hawke's Bay region after the trial ends. Also, there needs to be improvements made to the My Way service and the booking system. Admission to the service to ensure further success. I would like to see the driveway option to stay for those with an access need. In respect of the cost for public transport, Council should consider providing an accessible concession similar to what is available in other parts of New Zealand. This would remove any financial barriers for those with a disability which may prevent or limit them from using the bus. Also, disabled people sometimes require a support person to use the bus, and there shouldn't be any extra cost for someone if they need help. It would also be useful if there was some sort of identification or symbols added to the B card so a disabled person could use this to communicate with the driver if any extra help is needed. I would encourage HBRC to provide a disability awareness training to staff and transport operators. This would improve the service for myself and other disabled people in the community who rely on the public transport to travel in the Hawke's Bay region. For example, sometimes the bus drivers don't lower the bus for myself or other disabled people and we have to almost jump up to get on the bus, and we have to jump off, and the bus, and it would take away a lot of the issues if the drivers automatically lowered the bus. Also, HBRC should work to build a relationship with the disabled community to work together to make positive changes to our region's transport options. There also needs to be better communication about any changes to the transport service. For example, there was limited information made available to the disabled people when the bus payment card changed to the B card, and it happened again with the change of service to the new My Way bus. Please ensure that any changes as a result of the transport plan are clearly communicated in different forms and avenues so that people don't get confused and upset about the changes that you make in the future. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you consider all that I have put forward.
Carol, once again, thank you for a very thorough, healthy reminder to us of the importance of understanding the world of those that are disabled and how little things like a symbol on a B card could make a huge difference. So a question to the Regional Council transport team, is there a disability reference group that we lean on for advice and support if things are changing? Can you just speak to that for a moment, please?
Sorry, no. I can't because I'm not.
Through you, Chair. As I understand it, the Sustainable Transport Advisor has a range of different avenues that they deal with for any changes, idea services being one of them. If I do cast my mind back briefly to my very first week in this role, we were around this table having the same hearings for the Regional Public Transport Plan, and Carol Ann, you came and presented to that. If I recall correctly, the result of your presentations actually meant the inclusion of quite a number of policies around exactly what you've spoken about today, particularly as we work towards our new service and network in 2025, and really engaging with the likes of yourselves and other advocacy bodies and groups in the disabled community to make sure that we get that service design right, that the rolling stock is fit for all purposes and all users and so on and so forth. And we're, as a team, just sort of starting to really ramp up and get into that detailed design.
Thank you, Bryce. Really appreciate that background. Carol, before I ask Martin to ask a question, can you very simply explain to me how the My Way system has improved things for you?
It does make it a lot easier to get around because of listening to the people with a disability being able to get on if they have an access need instead of having to wait for the additional bus, because you're able to get us to the from driveway to driveway. And I would like to still see that stay, because there are people with that are blind and they can't see where they're going, and they may need to have that option because of a curve side that they can't see if they jump, if there's nothing there.
Yeah. So the public bus system may drop them off where there's a curb. If they can't see, they might trip, whereas the iWays will
drop you off
is at the driveway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
No,
I'd just
Chris-
like to...
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Bit of a continuation of what you're talking about.
I was going to go to Martin, but Keith, yes, you ask a question, then I'll go to Martin.
Okay, thank you. A great presentation. I just want to comment on the My Ways, what your views are of it being in Napier. You want to continue with the trial from the trial in Hastings, but it was proposed for Napier, but it's not happening at the moment. Do you have a view on that?
I actually have no idea what's happening with that one, because the person I normally come in with is Michelle Lucas, and she unfortunately didn't quite manage to put in a submission before you guys had the cut-off time, so she might be the one that you would need to talk to.
So, just follow up. If she was here, do you think she'd be saying, please have a My Way service?
Yeah,
in
I would
Napier?
say she would have.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but that would be a question that you may want to speak to Michelle Lucas about.
Okay. Thank you.
Just maybe I can question it a little bit differently. If you saw the strengths of My Ways in Hastings, do you think the same strengths would be in Napier?
I believe so.
All right. I'm going to Martin, who's coming online. You'll hear him behind you. Welcome, Martin.
Good morning, good morning, Caroline. Thank you very much for your submission again. Just to note, picking up on Bryce's point, that the public transport plan has a policy of considering fare exemptions for mobility impaired and their companions, and there is also a policy of actively engaging reference groups as subject matter experts in the design of bus stops, fare structures, customer experience, etc. I'm just wondering, my question is really, again, for the staff deliberation report, could we please have a reasonably detailed response to the points made in this submission, including the extent to which they are responded to in our existing public transport plan, or could be in the one to come, which I think we're kicking off next year, and as opposed to whether that lives in this plan. That's the point to cover. so response and where that response best lives. On my way, I need to be honest and tell you that the funding capacity for public transport simply isn't going to stretch in the immediate future, at least, to my way in Napier, and that the trial won't be at this stage continuing in Hastings. I'm incredibly sad about that. But what we are hoping to do is increase the frequency of our bus services, and I see a great future for my way operating as a floating system on top of the fixed route services rather than replacing them, as happened in Hastings. So hopefully, in time, with good government support, we can get the best of both worlds. Thank you again for being here.
So thank you, Carol Ann, for your presentation, and your requests have been heard, and we will come back to you.
I still encourage you guys to work well and alongside the disabled community.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We will.
Good morning, Walter. Welcome. Committee submission 71, page 26. Now, Walter, I know you've been here before as well, so you know the rules.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I prepared a handout. There is a little bit more information which I otherwise would also contribute, but it may be worth to pass this around.
Thank you, Walter. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, the Cyclone Gabrielle put a big financial pressure on the region and the country, and we have to fear that similar events may strike us again in the future. And therefore, I think we have to be very careful with our money. And I was astonished when I found in my letterbox from the regional council where they wanted to save money on sustainable housing, on erosion control, biodiversity, and the parks. And this may be a few millions which can be saved, but on the other hand, long term, it will be more cost if this would not go ahead. On the other hand, the regional transport plan is dealing with billions, and my focus is the costs for the extension of the highway to the expressway. And I think before this is coming in place and before a decision should be made, I would expect that a proper analysis should be made either here or, on the other hand, we have specialists for transport in universities who could help with a proper plan, especially for public transport. I have 6 points which I would like to bring to your attention. The interdependence between the 4-lane expressway and public transport. The current draft plan is speaking about creating choices by public transport, and I appreciate that. And I think we have to spend, of course, a lot of money to repair what is damaged. There is no doubt about this. But before we spend this 800 million, and I think it may be even more, we should look a little bit closer in the details. If the plan goes ahead with public transport, we may achieve within 3 to 4 years' time choices for people to go from the cars to buses. To start building the 4-lane may take 5 or 6 years. So that means if this is finished, then there are new choices. So that means people who were more or less interested and convinced to take a public transport
they may see suddenly the new roads and said, oh, I can go back. And if you look at the general development of private cars, the electric car is taking up, even if the subsidy is reduced. But these people with electric cars, they will probably go back on the road. So that means this has to be clarified. The second point is is air pollution. Microfiber from car tire wear and tear is creating 80% of microfiber pollution in the ocean. And this is not a figure from Greenpeace, who had some little bit study. This came from a research project in the UK based on figures from Oxford and Leeds University. On the other hand, we are here the highest polluter of public transport. Together with America, we are unfortunately the biggest polluter. We have about 900 cars per 1,000 inhabitants. India has 40. So that means we have to look at this very carefully. The pollution, and I have this here in this paper, you see a little bit more. The pollution which we are creating here on our islands are about 7,000 to 8,000 tons of microfiber which goes in the ocean. And this is creating pollution in the ocean. It affects the carbon sink of the ocean, and the ocean is playing, a big role in this, and I've copied a few pages. And on the other hand, the oxygen production by plankton in the sea is also affected by this. This seems to be a little bit very fairy, but these are facts and these are pollutions. And the Imperial Institute of London, I have to quote them, they said, the reduction of the pollution from wear and tear from tires is as important as the reduction from car fuel. And we have to digest this, what this means. There are some countries who are dealing already with this. California has now a law about tire manufacturing, because there is a so-called 6-PPD, which is a component which create toxic to fish. I copied also something about that. The European Union is also working on regulations, but the scientific world said this is not enough. We have to get rid of cars on the road. And there I come to the third point, the rail. And the economy of our situation here, the rail line is not used efficiently. We heard this before. And my point is, it should be possible to re-establish the rail service between Napier and Hastings. It could be done like the on-demand service, which was a test. And I would like to see this here for 2 or 3 years between Napier and Hastings, have a car rail service and test this. In brackets, we were discussing also, I heard this morning, the efficiency of public transport and cost. Public transport will never cover the cost. We have to understand this. But it is a service for the well-being of our society and here for our region. And it would be a development line for the whole region if we establish this better. If people in Otani would hop on a bus or on a train, they can easily go up to Wairoa. And this should be an development which should be considered. And I would like to see that the Transport Committee should take care that these interdependencies should be regarded in a complete investigation, and they may contract this to a university. The fourth point is, and I make this quickly, this is the energy balance or the emission balance. For instance, what is the emission? 1 minute, I'm through. The emission balance from greenhouse gas during the construction of the 4-lane. And this is missing. Then land and soil. Mariculture has a big connection to land. At the moment, I try to find out how many hectares of land we use for the extension. There is no figure how many hectares these are. And this is fertile land. The last point is health. There is no target how to reduce the social and health costs. Per household in New Zealand, we have $5,400 of annual cost from air pollution from transport. Let me finish with a comment from Norway, and I copied there also something. They were also struggling with the 4-lane Rhine. The Norwegian expert said, if you start with a national goal for reducing transport emission, it will force you to focus more on public transport and less on road construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. That's time to the minute, almost the second of your 10 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I will leave that unless there's an urgent burning question we need answered today. No. Walter, thank you as always, very informative, and the information you've given here supports the information you've shared with us, so thank you. Calling for our next submitter, Alan Newton. For the committee, it's submitter 38 on page 17. Hello.
How are you?
Welcome. And once again, you've been here before, you know how we roll, you have 10 minutes. Please leave some time at the end so we can ask you questions.
Okay.
Thanks, Alan.
I'll just take my coat off, it's nice and warm in here. First of all, a little bit of support for the Regional Council. The pre-Cyclone Gabriel warnings, I know you guys have been bashed severely about it, but I would have had probably about 5 or 6 emails warning pre-cyclone. Every night for the 3 nights before Cyclone came out, it was on TV, and I had phone calls from the Civil Defence. So the media flack that everyone gave out, I have no idea what it was about.
Thank you.
So,
now, before you start your submission, I just have a question. I'm struggling to find my submission here.
Page 17.
Thank you. I had it round the wrong way. I was looking for submission 17. My apologies.
Right.
Bad moment.
That's all right.
Floor's yours.
Never a bad moment, it's always a good moment. So the outcome that we want from today's hearing, I'm going to actually start backwards. So the outcome we want is we would like the Regional Council and the powers that be with our road between here and Wairoa to commission a feasibility study establishing the building of a coastal sort of inland highway between Wairoa and Tongoio. We want at least 50% of the personnel appointed to undertake this feasibility study to be from the Wairoa area. Our son is a trainee civil defence cadet. He has mapped a corridor from Wairoa to Tongoio. Distance on his map is approximately 59 kilometres and follows mostly ridge tops, inland coastal. He has flown this route to record it. Twice quoted in the Wairoa Star, referring to this section of State Highway between Wairau and Tongoio. Waka Kotahi Nicole Rosie stated, moving forward, the quality of roading needs to be better than it was before Cyclone Gabriel. This means that section of road was not up to a good enough standard for New Zealand pre-cyclone. On national television, Prime Minister of the day, Chris Hipkins, also used the words to the effect of this highway, State Highway 2, Napier, was not up to an acceptable standard for New Zealand and needs to be brought up to a higher standard for well-being of the Wairau people. Chris Hipkins also stated that as a country, we cannot afford this to have this happen again. This is the isolation and the fact that we were totally cut off. And it took 3 months, it took a long time. Social, financial is absolutely devastating to the area. Whilst reading over the sections of the Hawke's Bay Regional Transport Plan, I note that it stated under capital expenditure State Highway 2, for the next 3 years, your plan is to get the road back to a standard pre-Cyclone Gabriel. As the head of Waka Kotahi and Prime Minister have said, this standard is not acceptable standard. Not an acceptable standard. I also note that you are classing repairs and maintenance to this road as capital expenditure. Repairs and maintenance are not capital expenditure. The late Rex McIntyre spent half his life fighting to try to get improvements to this section of highway. His son was killed in a section of road due to damaged road. He also spoke of building a resilience corridor. He wanted a second route so that in case of a disaster, there would be a better chance of having road access. 3 years ago, my wife and myself stood before you trying to bring this to your attention and why we needed a better alternative route. Financial costs to farmers is an extra $600 on what was between $900 and $1,200 to get a truckload of livestock to Stortford Lodge sale. Prices of livestock are already down due to the economy, and that's taking a lot of money out of our community. That $600 is directly off the profit that we would receive. It's not just, we can't just recoup it from anywhere else. Healthcare continues to suffer from neglect and lack of service delivery. Education services continue to suffer from a lack of service delivery and opportunities. Community wellbeing is continuing to decline, and this is partly due to the isolation of our community. Hawke's Bay Regional Council document states the words resilience, community wellbeing and lower carbon footprint. By repairing the road and returning it to a former condition, with the exception of the Waikari Gorge, which was also promised that it would be done 3 years ago, I was assured from this room it was going to be started in 2021 and completed in 2023. So that didn't happen, so getting back to this here. The gorge, there is no resilience from weather impacts, no improvement to our community wellbeing, and no lowering of the carbon footprint. However, by building a coastal road, all of the above targets will be met because the road would be half the distance. I also wish to note the possibility of looking at establishing a corridor. I also wish to note that the possibility of looking at establishing a corridor on the rail route through Waikowhia is not a good option. This is approximately 34 kilometres from Tutera to Eskdale. I've worked in excavation earthworks in this region, and it is not stable ground in which to establish a resilient state highway. Please don't forget that Wairoa is the most isolated community in New Zealand, and please don't make it more isolated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Yeah. Any questions?
Oh, lovely. If I was to summarise, what you're asking for us is to consider an alternate route.
That's correct.
Not specifically your son's route, or?
Well,
and have you shared that
what
with
I'm
us?
asking for is a feasibility study for a coastal route.
Yeah.
A 45-minute trip. We're trying to create a 45-minute trip from Wairoa to Napier. There's no reason we shouldn't have it. The government should not balk at any cost on this road because they have not spent money on it in the last 60 years. They have avoided everything possible to improving that road. So if it is not applied for, it is not going to be gotten. And so the first application comes from this meeting. So nothing ventured is nothing gained. And there's no slap on the hand. You're not going to get your butts kicked from the government if you apply. So please apply for a, what do you call it?
Feasibility study.
Feasibility study.
Thank you. Could we have a copy of your submission?
I can actually email it to someone. I'll do it at the front desk.
Yep, that would be lovely. Really appreciate that. Time for one more question. One from behind you, Martin Williams.
Oh, hello. Oh, hello, Craig.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for being with us again, Alan. Look, the feasibility study that was the project in the Transport Agency's domain, their last transport plan that was added to that plan as a result of your presentation last time. Question for Lisa or anyone in the room who can answer it: what happened to that? Has it become subsumed in the Resilience Recovery Response Program, or what became of that feasibility study that was one of our top 10 projects last time?
I'll get a comment from the floor.
Through you, Chair, I was just going to ask, which feasibility study are you referring to specifically?
Yeah, sorry, that was the top 10. You know how we've got this time, there's a top 10 priority projects. We added one in response to submissions: develop a strategic case to investigate alternative road network options for Napier to Wairoa. I'm just wondering what if anything, became of that, and where it's at now in light of the Resilience Response Program. If it's better answered in the deliberations report, that's fine. Perhaps you could liaise with the staff about that.
Yeah, let's turn it on. Is that feasibility study the one where they look at the railway line?
Well, it was a full corridor. It was the entry. It was a 250,000 allocation for an entry into the process of a feasibility study that would support a program business case. But it was an all options open. All corridors kind of
Being federated
idea.
chairman from Wairoa, I have heard nothing about this.
Okay, so just to clarify, we will, as a committee, we will get an answer to Martin's question, and I'll ask that information gets to you.
So my request is that a feasibility study be done, and at least 50% of the people on a commission that are commissioned be from the Wairoa region.
Thank
Please.
you.
Thank you.
Right, next presenters, Andrea and Todd, on behalf of Port Welcome. And if I can take this moment to acknowledge, Andrea, the work that you and no doubt a team behind you did with the freight strategy.
Thank you very much.
That has been a great document to lean on. Welcome, Todd, as well.
Yeah.
Committee, page 36, submission 84.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide verbal feedback today to our written response. Yeah, I think we've met if not all, most of the people in the room today. So I'm Andrea Manley, I'm the GM of Strategy and Supply Chain at Napier Port, and this is
Todd Dawson,
Todd.
CEO of Napier
Yeah. So given the need to summarise the port's submission in 10 minutes, we're really sort of focusing on the key areas, and unfortunately sort of focusing on the key areas that we have concern as opposed to the areas that we have strong support for in the submission itself. So sort of summarised from that perspective. And the other thing I would like to share is that the perspective in which our feedback has been given is in knowledge of the local network here and also in a national context within New Zealand. And then also from a perspective of reading through our regional land transport plan in alignment with the recently closed for feedback and submission draft government policy statement on transport. The other thing around or context for our feedback today is also in light of we really recognise that as a region we have to make some hard choices. So our transport wants and also needs are far greater than our ability locally and nationally to fund, and so we are in a position together of having to make some choices relating to that. So first of all, our first observation is that it appears that the draft RLTP has been caught between two government policy statements. So the government policy statement that was issued in August of 2023 under the previous government, and then the recently released GPS that was released in March. And both of those documents have very different priorities and focus areas. And so when I read through the GPS, I can see that my interpretation is that it was our RLTP was written more aligned to the previous GPS. So overall, and actually just as a refresher, so the new draft GPS, which will be issued in June or July of this year, it is the policy that NZTA will be assessing our RLTP against, and the policy under which they will be contributing their funding towards the projects for. And that the new GPS is 4 focus areas, so economic growth and productivity, increased maintenance and resilience, safety, and then also value for money. And when I read through the details of both documents, what I can see is that our RLTP, or draft RLTP, is aligned to the GPS in terms of an efficient transport system that's resilient. So there's very strong alignment there. I do see that there is misalignment regarding low emissions, safe, provides genuine and equitable choices, and places community wellbeing at its centre. Our concern is that with the way the RLTP is written today, when it is reviewed by NZTA under the policy, is that some of our projects will miss being prioritised because of the areas of misalignment. The previous speaker mentioned the cost of transport of livestock from Wairoa, and our feedback under the RLTP is that our transport network still requires significant funding following Cyclone Gabrielle. I understand there's around $700 million worth of rebuild or repair work that is still unfunded. And so we would like to see that there is a prioritisation in our projects towards the efficient and resilient transport system side. That is also aligned to the #1 priority within the GPS. The reason that we're recommending prioritisation to this way, or just to give you some context about that, is that, as we all know, in the RLTP documented, we're a primary produce growing region, and that primary produce is a significant foundation to our regional economy. It also means that we need to transport our goods domestically and also internationally. We don't consume all that we produce within our region. And so a transport network that provides efficiency enables us to compete on a global stage. At the moment, we're actually naturally disadvantaged as a region when it comes to competing with international freight. And I'll give you an example relating to that, and the context is, it actually is nice timing with the previous speaker. To transport a container of product from Wairoa to Napier Port at the moment costs about $1,000. Then to transport that same container from Napier Port to Shanghai is $2,000. So our landside transport cost is a third of the total cost of the supply chain to get to Shanghai. So for us, prioritising an efficient network that is conducive to the flow of freight is a priority for our region, particularly as we're recovering our network from Cyclone Gabrielle. The next area that I did want to touch on is slightly opposite that. So there's one aspect of the GPS that doesn't directly support Hawke's Bay and it impacts Hawke's Bay, and that's rail between Palmerston North and Napier. So the GPS document itself, it supports rail in the Golden Triangle, which is Auckland, Hamilton and Tauranga for freight, and then it also supports passenger rail in Auckland and in Wellington. At the moment, the way the GPS is written, the rail network between Palmerston North and Napier is vulnerable. That rail network at the moment currently transports or takes 32,000 truck trips off our roads. And so what we would request is included into the RLTP is a recommendation that the cost of transport in our region is evaluated across both road and rail. So converting 32,000 truck trips back onto roads will have a significant difference to our road maintenance cost. Congestion, and we have already seen the result of congestion in our region, which then links to productivity. And then the other one is consideration of the residents that do live right next to our main transport routes for freight. The next area that I'd like to touch on, and actually is also quite a nice continuation from the previous speaker, is rail between Napier, Wairoa and Gisborne. So Napier Port does not support the studies that have been completed for rail between Napier and Wairoa, and we don't support further cost or further investigation into re-establishment of a rail up there. And the reason why is because the volume forecasts that we have don't support a commercially viable rail service. The next area I'd like to touch on is just the references to Napier Port in the RLTP. So there's references to Napier Port regarding capacity, container trucking booking information, and also as a key investment partner. And I think that information must have come from a previous RLTP and it's no longer current, so we would like to work with the Transport Committee to provide updated information regarding those areas. And then the last area I'd like to touch on is around transport network funding. So the RLTP section around funding, it doesn't consider alternative sources of funding, and we are in this reality situation today that what we would like to achieve is greater than what our national and local funding can contribute. And we recommend that now is the right time for us as a region to start to look at alternative sources of funding. All other regions will be doing the same thing at the same time. So in essence, we will be competing with the rest of New Zealand for alternative sources of funding and to really explore things like private investment or PPPs. At my time.
Perfect timing, Andrea. Perfect timing. I'll allow one question if there is a question. Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Through your chair, my question is your request that the RLTP should change the ambition and future vision of the region in light of the GPS?
Yes, to align with the GPS.
Is it the activities or the vision for the communities?
Both. So the vision, particularly in the shorter term, whilst we're rebuilding the transport network, not negating it in the longer term. And actually by supporting productivity and the economy, it means that funding is generated for other activities that don't create a growth in the economy. Sorry, Lisa, I've forgotten the second half of your question.
Oh, it was primarily around activities versus the vision of the community and what you were asking.
So, yeah, as a result of that, changed the priorities of some of the activities. In the submission itself, I did sort of recommend specific activity numbers and the recommendation around priorities.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah,
Lovely to
fine.
see you.
Yeah.
Given,
May I have a small clarification?
you may.
In your actual submission in here, it says you put a 4 for that the prioritisation is right. Do you agree? And that signals that you strongly agree with their prioritisation, but everything that you've said is the opposite. Is that a mistake?
I think it is, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Kate.
I probably switched the maths and it probably should be a 2 and
Yeah,
not a
just wanted
4,
to-
yeah.
Right, committee, given that we've been going for 2 hours, I'm going to have a very quick 3 to 5 minute break. So those that need to use facilities can get a drink, stretch their legs. All right, we are running on time, but we'll be a few minutes behind because of this break. Thanks, team. everybody. We're going to move to our last few submitters. So the next submitter is Glenn Marshall, page 55, submitter number 96. Glenn, welcome. As you've heard me say, we have 10 minutes. If you can save some time for questions at the end, would be great.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just want to start off with the back end of my submission, which is basically what I'm saying is in my opinion, the transport system is broken in Hawke's Bay. Buses and electric cars aren't the solution. So, and the point that I point out in the submission, and you guys have probably seen this as well, is like there's been an explosion of bicycle ownership in Hawke's Bay in the last 5 to 10 years, specifically e-bikes, but that has not transposed into using a bicycle as a mode of transportation. And I think that the graphic example of just how dysfunctional our transport system is I've got a couple of friends that do recreational cycling on the pathways and that, and it's just diabolical that these people put their bikes on the back of their cars and drive often less than 5k to the start of the trails, and I've challenged a couple of the people on this, and they said it's not that we're anti-cycling that, but we'd never cycle on Hawke's Bay roads. It's just too bloody dangerous, you know. There's too many cars and all the rest of it, you know. So and I just want to show you, like, this is my ABS and this is my airbags, you know, and I've almost been knocked off my bike a few times, and I readily accept that there's a significant risk of injury or death going by bicycle, but I'm still prepared to do that. And even for my insurance business, I bike to see most of my clients. So I just think it's just criminal. You look at the weather that we've got today, and it's just the kids on their bikes don't bike to school anymore. It's basically pretty much just cycling in Napier as a mode of transportation in Hastings is pretty much dead. So one solution that I do want to talk about is, have you guys heard of Take the Lane?
I haven't. I know what you mean though, and so I'd be interested if you could explain more to us, please.
Yeah, and so like I didn't hear about this until about a year ago. There was a lady down in Nelson, and there was an article on Stuff News, and she basically said that she's repeatedly given the finger and people honking their horns at her because she takes the lane, and I didn't realise there was such a thing. And so does everyone know what Take the Lane is? Yep. Yeah, so and when I read that, I've started taking the lane as well, not as an arrogant thing or trying to cheese someone off or something like that, but like two specific examples is Carlisle Street and Tennyson Street, because if you don't take the lane, the other option is you take your life in your own hands, because the trucks and the vans will basically try and squeeze past you, and you've basically got nowhere to go. And you're also all familiar with the phrase getting doored.
Yes.
Yeah. And man, that's just like, that happens all the time. You've just got to be looking through those windows to see if there's anyone in that car, and if there is, just have your hands on the brakes. And to be honest, that's not their fault either. It's because they are so friggin' not used to seeing a cyclist. It is such a rare event, you know. And then, but the other thing I want to just sort of share with you guys is, and I always indicate with my hands, try and be a friendly cyclist, but coming down Tennyson, man, it is a friggin' shocker. You know, like I can go on Marine Parade, heading back home, and going along Tennyson Street, and I take the lane, and the car's not always, but quite often there's a car behind you, and it's just the aggression, and it's just this like. Yeah, and it's like, shit, you don't go that fast along Tennyson Street anyway, but then as soon as there's a break in the traffic the other way, and they can be coming up to the lights here and they see the lights are red, they'll still, not all, but some of them will friggin' floor it and go around you to get to the lights. And then I'm up behind them again at the next set of lights, they'll do the same thing, and like quite often they'll honk their horns and all that, because it's just this, it's how dare you be on the road, you know, you're not paying any registration or Warrant of Fitness or whatever, so... yeah, I know, I just want to come on, it probably won't make any difference to you guys, I suspect, and especially with the national government, the way it's all going now, they don't seem to give a shit about cyclists, to put it candidly, but I just wanted to share the experience of what it is actually like to basically ride out there on the roads, eh? But I'm going to continue to do it, and even if I got killed next week, I'd still be happy to keep doing it, because it's like, the more and more people that basically just throw in the towel because it's too risky, then that just helps to feed the problem, eh? So
Thank you, Glenn.
yep.
Questions from the floor? Going to the team online. Martin?
Yeah, thanks for coming along, Glenn, and for your continued passion on this topic and for championing the mode. Have you managed to find your way through? I'm sort of really interested in what if anything specific in our regional land transport plan you'd like to see changed or done differently. And I was wondering if you'd read the schedule of proposed works on about. There's quite a range of projects for cycling in Napier and Hastings on, I think, sort of pages 92 or around the 90s of the document. There is quite a lot of work there. Did you see any joy in that?
Yeah, but I think the take the lane thing, Martin, I think like on roads like Carlisle and Tennyson, there's not really an alternative. So, in my opinion, and sorry I should have said that before, is to have signage to explain to people what take the lane is. And you know how you've got the cycleway thing, maybe a similar thing like a pink broken line or some other line to indicate take the lane, and so that cyclists can go in there. And in fairness,
I see.
because I think with the cyclist motorists, to be fair, a lot of them, and there's obviously aggression out there towards cyclists, but they don't actually understand that take the lane is actually similar to entitlement. So.
All right, so it's actually
we just got to make it like building cycleways, man. It's not going to cut the mustard, mate, eh? Because our roads are too narrow, and some of those roads you just can't put a cycleway on it. And so this is actually about changing behaviour, and it's saying actually those cyclists have got a right to be on that road, and you might view it as not you, but them as hogging the lane. It's a re-education thing, eh? Is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yep.
I understand. I'm with you. Okay.
So we'll pick this up.
Very clear.
We'll pick this up as an action to discuss in our deliberations.
Yep.
An education.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for your time, everyone, and thank you, Martin. Cheers for that.
Thank you, Glenn. Right, I'd like to invite Ross McLeod on behalf of the Regional Recovery Agency, page 56, submission 98. Welcome, Ross. 10 minutes. Allow time for questions if you can.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak to you this morning for the Regional Recovery Agency. Our submission focuses on two main areas. Unsurprisingly, given we're the recovery agency, the damage done to our local roading networks by Cyclone Gabrielle, and the vital need for enhanced funding assistance for the councils in those recovery works. And secondly, really just to highlight the need for investment in resilience across the roading system, both on local roads and state highways. I think generally the RRA really wishes to convey its support for the direction signalled within the Land Transport Plan. We think it's a good plan, particularly the emphasis placed on that need for enhanced recovery funding and for state highway resilience. And really we're seeking today to have the plan updated to reflect the new work that the council's have done on defining their recovery programs better and the funding required, and the greater emphasis to be placed on resilient infrastructure. So just a little bit more detail on that. To recap, Cyclone Gabrielle caused about $1.1 billion worth of damage to the local roading networks across Hawke's Bay, predominantly in Hastings District, Wairoa District and Central Hawke's Bay. And About 400 million of that work's been funded to date, mostly through government assistance, but also by the councils, leaving about 700 million unfunded. Most of those roads are in the rural areas and they're key arteries for the Hawke's Bay economy. They get supplies to farm, forest and orchard, and they bring produce and wood and out to processing into port. So key to the economy, and that roading network really links with the state highways and connects to our export base and economy to markets, as well as being people connections. The councils are under significant funding assistance post-Gabrielle, and we've been working with government, the council's been working with government to seek enhanced funding assistance for that, 20% plus emergency fare rates for recovery work to be extended, but also bespoke funding assistance on top of that for the councils. The councils have been working over the past few months to really program what that work looks like going forward. They're looking at a very credible program that can be delivered over a sort of 4 to 7 year window. They're not asking for money they're not going to spend. And the length of time of that recovery really will depend on the level of funding assistance that's provided. So we're seeking just to have the plan updated so that it reflects that more recent work that the councils have done in defining those programs and the funding requests that go alongside of that. Just turning to resilience, I guess one of our sort of informal sort of guides or things we kick around at the office, one of our board members said it, is that if we have another cyclone of the scale of Gabrielle, we want to make sure that our systems and our roading networks in particular perform better next time. And if they don't, we've really missed a key recovery opportunity. So that's a focus for us. And we see it as a key recovery role, and it's important, or goal, sorry, and it's important both in the local roading network and across the state highways. To achieve that, we think that criteria for funding recovery works needs to enable proactive and preventative resilience work, as well as just fixing damage. And there needs to be consideration given to resilience realignments where they might be a better long-term solution than just patching up the existing alignment. And again, that's across as a principle across the network. State highway resilience is critical for the region. It's critical for the region's economy alongside those local roads and for people connection to access to services. And we saw the impacts that Gabrielle had, particularly to the north for Wairoa, 3 months out on State Highway 2 and for Napier in the initial days and State Highway 5 for a number of weeks as well. So resilience is important in that context, but we've also been presented here with the opportunity to look at whether our current arrangements are appropriate or whether alternative alignments might be better in the long run and present opportunities. And I guess, you know, if you look at State Highway 2 to the north of Napier, we've got sort of a 1 in 100 year opportunity to look at, is it best to try and make more resilient the current alignment, and what's the cost of that's going to take, and is it actually going to work? Or is it better to look at an alternative alignment? And really we're pushing, we're working closely with New Zealand Transport Agency to see that an alternative alignment that's not just focused on the current alignment, that might avoid some of the hard ground that the road currently traverses, to make sure that's included for sort of full evaluation alongside current options. And we're really looking for that to be, the priority for that to be reflected either in or alongside the plan. So I think Just in terms of other issues, we don't want to touch on too much more. After a review of the plan, we think probably the levels of funding for maintenance, operation and renewals are quite light. Particularly if we look at the state highway category, if I'm reading that correctly, 103 million seems quite light in the plan, but that may be because there's quite a bit being spent on resilience. So there may be a good reason for that, but that was just our initial observation. So in summary, we're asking for the plan to be updated to reflect that the work the councils have done on their recovery work programs and the funding needs for that updated programming. We're urging that a push be made to ensure there's sufficient funding and that criteria are adjusted to provide for resilience to be built into our networks. And we're wanting to reflect investigation of that alternative alignment for State Highway 2 North as a priority either in or alongside the plan. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ross. Just a comment from me. This week I received an email regarding proposed new emergency fire rates, which instead of being the plus 20% that you're recommending we need confirmed, it's going to be down to plus only 10%. Are you aware of that and have you got any comments? Is the Regional Recovery Agency stepping into that space?
Yes, we are aware of that through you, Madam Chair, and on the surface it is of significant concern to Hawke's Bay. We note from the proposal that if it did come into effect, it would apply, I think, from July 2025, but we will be seeking, we are working with the councils on that matter. We will be seeking clarification and urging that if that does occur, that it doesn't apply to the known recovery work already signalled in the Hawke's Bay program, multi-year program. And, you know, more generally, I think it would be of concern for communities facing future emergencies. So not just our current situation, but future emergency, it will be of great concern. We're working with the councils and other stakeholders to ensure there's a coordinated response to that from the region.
Thank you. One other question at a time. We've lost Martin.
Martin's got his hand up.
Somebody's got, no, we've got him. Martin, just one question as we're out of time.
Yeah. So the punchline in essence, Ross, is that we need to amend the plan where it's reasonably general as to what the RRA sees as needed for an enhanced fire rate to get us through the recovery. We can now just put the plus 20% bit in there. That's the key punchline request for an amendment to this plan.
And the additional bespoke funding on top of the 20%, which varies council by council, but yes, that's key.
Yeah. So 20% on the existing 59, 53, 51, 51, 75.
Plus.
Yeah.
Plus the bespoke amounts on top of that.
Plus bespoke on top of that again. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you for what you do in the Regional Recovery Agency.
Thank you.
Committee, you'll have some papers in front of you and an email with some red on it, which is the summary. So I'd like to invite Alistair to come and speak on behalf of a group of significant businesses in Hawke's Bay. Alistair, you've done this before. We've seen your face here on a similar, if not same topic. 10 minutes is yours, and if you can leave time for questions, it may be a benefit.
Thank you. So I appear before the committee essentially to seek your support to influence a specific piece of work that is being done as we speak by the New Zealand Transport Agencies and the TREC associated entity in respect to State Highway 2 north of Napier. So to define what I mean, they're doing a whole lot of work on restoration, recovery, and future planning all the way up State Highway 2. But in particular, they are working on what's known as the Devil's Elbow, piece of road that travels over the top of the Kaiwaka Range, going north and then down through a river, two river gorges actually to get to Tūtera. They have just recently completed a round of what I thought was consultation, but I think really could be better described as a briefing on where they're at. And they've advised that they have discounted rerouting that section of road, and they are focusing on 4 options to renovate and re-engineer and improve that section of road. And they advise that that decision is made on an economics basis. They are unable to advise the financial implications of those options in order to support the fact that it's an economic decision. So I'm here really to put the point that this decision not to reroute on the Devil's Elbow and to renovate it instead has massive implications for all of the communities from Tongoia to the East Cape. You might as well say to Ruatoria. A big portion of all of Gisborne accesses the Hawke's Bay as its primary destination. So, and the fundamental point is this: if a large sum of money is spent on the Devil's Elbow, it will preclude investment in a better routing for a very long time, all of our lifetimes and probably all of the next generation. So we're at a pivot point in the history of this road if we're considering that kind of investment, and the stakes are really high to make a sensible long-term investment and not a short-term decision around quantums of money. To explain why I think that's why there's a very strong chance that the decision taken so far to eliminate rerouting is wrong, I'm going to run through a quick series of aspects that probably illuminate this. First and foremost, the history. The current highway runs on what was originally built as a coach road. It took horse-drawn coaches. 25-kilometre-an-hour corners were no problem, and neither were steep gradients particularly. You know, their considerations were to stay close to the coast because the coast had been, civilization had developed there seaborne. So all of civilization was sitting on the coast. Staying close to the coast was important. That's why the road's where it is at. In the 1930s, which is 90 years ago now, the railway engineers charted a route up through the same area and did not take the same route because trains don't like steep gradients or sharp corners, and they couldn't do it. The truth is, of course, that the railwaymen found the ergonomically efficient route through the same piece of land 90 years ago. The model was built then, and at some point, sooner or later, we have to recognise that the railwaymen were much better informed and had a wider scope of decision-making available to them than the horse-drawn coaches did. So history says we're in the wrong spot. From a risk and safety point of view, the current road traverses a steep, unstable side of a mountain range, and 2 river gorges. The land's unstable. The space to make a decent road with regard to defence clearances and that sort of thing is basically non-existent without massive engineering. Some of those options under consideration for rebuilding the Devil's Elbow are massive engineering tasks. There's no fixed costs associated with them yet, but you would have to say, because of the nature of the terrain, those costs will be at risks. You know, the estimation will be highly risky. Without the massive engineering, The current highway cannot be made acceptably safe and hospitable for unconfident and learner drivers. It just cannot be done. Acceptable and safe clearances and barriers between traffic travelling in the opposite direction is very unlikely or nigh on impossible. And acceptably comfortable for the welfare of large numbers of animals that are carried over this highway for farming and holidaying and sporting reasons cannot be achieved. We can spend all the money we like and we will not achieve decent levels of risk and safety on that current route. From an environmental point of view, if you were asked to take a bicycle and bike your way to Tūtera from here, up the railway line or over the Devil's Elbow, it'd be a pretty clear choice. You'd go up the railway line. Why? Because it would take a lot less energy. And for the rest of the life of this highway, it will not matter what energy source the vehicles use, that differential will remain. Be it hydrogen, electricity, diesel, whatever. The Road Transport Association, which is the Truckies Association, made some estimates in the late 2010s. They would nearly halve the diesel consumption between here and Tūtera on the rail in the Waikowhai Valley as compared with going over the range. If we have a concern about energy consumption and environmental matters therein, when this needs to be properly considered, and there's no real evidence that this has been factored into the decision making thus far. So from an environmental energy efficiency point of view, for the rest of our lives and the next generation, this needs to be thought through properly. From a community and social point of view, the difficulty of this road builds isolation for every community north of Tongoia. Their education, their health services, their economic opportunities, their livelihoods, their social connection with family inside and outside of the territory are all damaged and reduced because the road is so difficult. And travelling through a river gorge and over a range will never be as good as bypassing all of that and running up a valley. So the social isolation, community isolation, for that to be settled, that this needs to be reconsidered. Finally, economically, the proposal is that it's not viable to reroute, and some really massive road engineering activities on the Devil's Elbow should be considered instead. For that argument to stand up, there needs to be comprehensive, transparent, publicly available detail as to what those costings are, and it is not so. It does not hold water at the moment. It's just a decision taken without any of those features, and it's of massive consequence to all of the communities to the north. And to have taken that decision without being able to furnish that type of financial evidence is really poor. It needs to be done. It was nice to see the port clarify the prospects for the rail. This piece of road and rerouting it has sometimes been seen in conflict with the rail, because if it takes the rail corridor, then obviously we're shutting rail down. It doesn't need to be so. The suggestion is not to remove rail if that was wanted for the future. The truth is that the energy sources for trucking in the future are going to be very competitive with rail from an environmental point of view. So rail's case is falling on that front, and the port is now telling us that commercially it's not there now anyway, so the case doesn't seem to be getting stronger. But this is not in conflict with rail. It's not instead of rail. It's about doing it properly. So for summary, my submission really proposes that if large capital improvement is being considered for the Devil's Elbow section of State Highway 2, then rerouting to the Waikowhai Valley, I've reworded this because it's not just the rail corridor, anywhere down that valley, must be properly considered, fully evaluated, and presented in depth to the community this highway serves. Anything less would be tantamount to negligent for those people.
Thank you, Alistair. Well spoken as always. A question from me, given you are the representative of a wide range of companies. Private-public partnerships.
Absolutely. I'm the managing director of a farming business in southern Wairau and also of a manufacturing business in central Hawke's Bay who procures materials from Gisborne. And my businesses, both of them, have suffered at the hands of this roading. Twice in the last 40 years, that road has just been completely decimated, this piece of road we're talking about. And we're saying that these kind of events are going to increase in regularity. The same experience is true of all of those businesses that have written in support of my submission. So that's Leaderbrand, AFCO, Ovation. They're substantial businesses. The Road Transport Association, numbers of years ago, suggested that in isolation the trucks would be happy to pay tolls without the rest of the society being involved. I guess what your question highlights, Madam Chair, is that this decision has been taken by Trek without even so much as consulting the community and their willingness to be involved in meeting the cost. In casual conversation at their last presentation at Waikari, they fumbled around a little bit, if I put it unkindly, for some numbers, and it appeared on what they could come up with that it might be 4 times the cost to go build a brand new highway down through the Waikowhai Valley versus re-engineering the Devil's Elbow. I'd be surprised if it's that much, because the Devil's Elbow engineering will be massive to do it properly and risky. And the other thing about it, of course, is the Waikowhai Valley will be traffic-free. A big part of road construction costs is traffic management. There won't be any. So when actual genuine differential in financial consequences established, give the community the opportunity to address that. Don't discount it on their behalf. That's just arrogant.
Thank you, Alistair. That is time, unless I have a burning question from Mayor Little. Good morning, Craig.
Oh, he's on mute.
Kia ora, Alistair. That was a great submission, mate. I've read your other submission the other day as well. Well done. You'll have no one disagreeing with you up in the Wairau region. And thanks for doing the work you're doing, because it must be taking a lot of your time up.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alistair.
Do you want to say something?
No further questions, in which case that brings that part of our meeting to an end. Submitters, you are free to go should you wish. All I'm going to do now is ask around the table if there's any things that were raised that they want to highlight to make sure that the staff will cover off. Because today's not a decision-making day, we're not debating and we're not deciding today. Today was a listening day. Lisa?
Yes, thank you, if I might. I just, in reference to the last presentation, I just want to note that there is work happening currently, and I don't want to confuse that work with what's happening here with RLTP. And I just want to be sure that any discussion around those activities are how we address it in the RLTP process. Other conversations about realignment and nature of activities happening currently, I would be keen to take offline and discuss separately.
Right, I'll go to our normal chair. Martin Williams, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and happy to be normal. I've got several, by way of exception perhaps, I've got several issues that I particularly want to see addressed in the staff report. Firstly, and I've covered some of those previously, I mentioned some of them, but I had quite a lot of questions I would like to have asked Andrea and Todd. They raised some important issues, but the fundamental issue I want the staff to advise us on is, are we actually at risk of losing funding if we have aspects of our plan that go beyond and address issues that aren't covered in the GPS? Can we have a regional aspiration to protect the health of our communities, to have public transport and have active transport, and still have priority bids for funding that would be for economic growth and productivity. Can we be both and at regional level, or do you actually risk the funding bid for our road recovery program by having any mention of public transport or community wellbeing? I don't understand that there is such risk and that we can be the region we want to be, and that GPSs will change as governments come and go. But I just want to get some clarity as to whether there is actually a risk of losing funding for roading projects just because we mention other forms of transport. That's the first point.
So, Martin, did you want an answer now, or do you just want?
No, in the report.
Just as a sense, because you can't see the room, there people are nodding in the sense of we can and.
Great. That's good to hear. The second thing is in response to the last submitter. To what extent do we in this process, or can we in this process, influence the decision making that's being made in the context that's just been described? How can this RLTP shape and influence optioneering around that corridor? Do we put, like we did last time, a bid for a feasibility study? Is that going to miss the boat? I just really want to understand how those processes align and where our role as a Transport Committee is on that conundrum. And so that's that point. The more minor ones I had, although they're not minor, I think I covered off during the session, was the issue of a response to Carol in particular. How that's dealt with in the public transport plan, or whether it should be dealt with in this plan, the issues she raised. And I think those were the major issues. I'd also asked for some response to the submission by Genesis as to the way our plan is treating, or could more expressly highlight the significance of State Highway 38 for access to the power station. And I think that is me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. I'm interested in how we can capture the words tolling public-private partnership within the plan. And I'm interested in exploring time of use charging. As somebody who generally can't avoid the rush hour, it would be interesting to just understand if there's examples of it elsewhere. And a very simple recommendation from me is, given Carol Ann often comes and submits to us, can we make sure that she is part of the team that we talk to when it comes to transport choices? And that's enough from me. Kate?
One of the things that has annoyed me somewhat today is the lack of Kiwi Rail and rail representation around this table. They do know about the meetings. I believe they do get invited. That I can count on one hand the number of times they've been represented around the table in the 5 years that I've been coming. And, rail has come up a lot today. And I really... I'm not sure, it's not a directive to go in the staff report back to us or anything, but I just, wish they were around the table.
Let's see if we can pick it up as an action point and find out what the roadblock is. Are we inviting the right people?
Thank you.
Keith?
All good, thanks.
All good? You're easy to please. You're easy to please.
Oh, I think there'll be a bit come out in future over some of the things today.
My way in Napier.
Power bridges.
Yes.
Marcus?
I'm happy to be here and very interesting to hear the submissions.
Api?
Yes, Kia ora, Madam Chair. I think for iwi, we're pleased to be here so if there's a problem, we want to be part of the solution, so we want to be able to agree to agree or agree to disagree. So, kia ora.
Okay. Ian?
No, happy with submissions today. I think there's been a lot of good come out of some of them to support, the trek and various things.
Thank you. I was going to leave you to last, Lisa, because I
Oh,
thought you might,
thanks.
in respect, because I thought if we raise things, you might be able to give some clarification and some advice. So I wasn't ignoring you.
no,
I was
that's
just going to jump to David and then Angela.
That's fine.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
David, anything that you wanted to
A couple of
cover
little
off?
things. The discussion, the last submitter, with regards to the alternatives, I can remember hearing that, I think it was Ministry of Works days, that there was a study conducted, and it was never implemented, but there's a lot of people spent, many years of their life looking at those alternatives, and those studies have got to be available to be reviewed, I suspect. The other one with regards to the mobility, under our brief, I think access and mobility, I think I should probably be looking more at the needs of people with disabilities. So that's something probably I could offer to take up if that was...
So can you work with the staff team?
Just, even if it's just a matter of meeting people from time to time, it's just, yeah.
That'd be brilliant, thank you.
So that was something I had thought of. And the last little thing was, we've spoken a lot about travel, and the Ministry of Transport has just released the results of another survey. 81% of us still prefer to travel by private car, but what is interesting, 11% of us prefer to walk, and that's ahead of cycling, public transport, the whole shooting box. So, yeah.
Thank you. Angela?
Thank you. Apologies for lateness. I can obviously read the submissions that have been sent out for the first hour that I missed, but was it recorded, the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can play that back and cover off. No, just listening today, and thank you for provided. Nothing to add.
Lisa, actually, before I jump to you, can I just check in with others on the screen? Sure. Sean, did you have anything you wish to raise in addition to what's been discussed?
Yes, if I may, through you, Madam Chair. The cycle lane, which has now been taken off of the state highway SHIP program, the cycle lane across the Waipawa Bridge, I've been encouraged to make sure that from a RLTP perspective, that doesn't get lost and we don't take it out of the RLTP. It won't have any funding, but as funding becomes available, if it becomes available within 3 years and or other government funding pops up to start to deal with some of the things that this government has taken out, that we would need to have that in the RLTP for it to be considered. So I would request that as we finalize the RLTP, that we leave that in there. And I think that goes back to Martin's original point of, does it hurt us in getting our money if we've got those projects in the RLTP? And NZTA have encouraged, no, leave it in the RLTP.
Thank you. Craig Little, have you got anything to add that to the discussion?
Yeah, ditto what Sean said, and as I did include CHP, I'm sure Sean will be wanting to include wire and also our one that was removed. So, but no, all it's going to be a hard one, that's for sure.
Okay. Jag?
Yeah, I think I agree with Sean. We should be able to leave in the RLTP, and the Waka Kotahi or NGT can decide unfunded project. But in future, like Sean said, as if the money become available, at least the project is there.
Thank you very much to the committee and advisors. I'll now give sort of last right of reply or some advice to us to Lisa.
Sure, yeah, I just kind of had some general thoughts in listening to the submissions. So something I wanted to note is that, the port mentioned there's been a change in focus in the narrative from one government to another, and the same applies to recovery. The phrase build back better is not the types of phrases we're hearing currently. So in light of that, I did acknowledge that there's been a lot of commentary around resilience of local roads alongside resilience of the transport system via alternate routes. I'm not sure if we have enough activities reflected in the RLT to support that type of work. I'm saying that as I'm not across that level of detail currently. I am aware that our investment advisors had spoken with most of the councils post-cyclone to ensure that resilience business cases were underway to understand how we might respond in the future and prioritize investment. And I just want to be sure that any piece of work in that space does also consider alternate routes. I would also note that we do have the form and function review, which we could ask to take a resilience lens across that as well. So I think there's a few ways that we could tackle that, but I just want to be sure that the resilience aspect of the transport systems reflected and to the level of the importance that's been voiced today and in the submissions. Leaving in activities that were moved in the SHIP is completely acceptable and is not an issue, and we would actually encourage it for the same reason that I actually mentioned to Sean. We never know what other funding opportunities might come up, and you will need any transport activity that you might want to pursue in the future included in your RLTP. It just means that there won't be funding for it at this point in time. Also, in reference to the vision and the activities alignment with the GPS, I think we can have it both ways, Martin. I do think that the intent of the RLTP is to really capture those aspirations and the vision of the region for the land transport system. However, we would encourage a clear view across the activities and the prioritization and an understanding as to how it links with the GPS, because that alignment is critical to ensuring that we put our best foot forward to get funding from the NLTF. As previously mentioned, also, I think we may not need to get into the details, but I think there should be mention of consideration of alternate funding arrangements. There has been clear signals from the government in that space in the GPS and in previous commentary. I do see that as being a common thing going forward, and it is also being discussed in the Roads of National Significance space.
Right.
And then just in a detail, in reference to the emergency works and the FAR rates, there is a consultation process, and I would encourage a collective submission via the appropriate channels for that. I think that's all for me.
All right. And my final comment, Bryce, this is where you might be able to help me, is at the last meeting, I made a comment that I would like to see in the regional land transport wording that captures the work that Trek is doing on our network. So that if a decision has to go through to, for example, Treasury or a minister, that if a very simple question is asked, is that in our RLTP? The answer is yes. So I don't know how we capture it, but I'm talking absolute high level. This is not about different routes or different levels of resilience. Not getting into that. It's just that capturing at the highest level that we are embracing the work that Trek is doing on our network. And yes, it's in our RLTP. So can you confirm that either we have captured that or that we can capture that, Bryce?
Through you, Chair, yes and yes.
Right.
To an extent, it is captured. There are a couple of sections in the draft where we discuss the strategic resilience response works. Since, of course, we went out for consultation, that has evolved to what we have now, looking at State Highway 2, State Highway 5 and Devil's Elbow. So we can just tweak those a little bit and also wrap some more, I guess, high-level language around any additional works or planning to be done in future years.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a catch-all kind of.
Thank you. That would be great. There's no further questions or comments? All right, I am happy to close the meeting. Delighted to close the meeting, and once again, if okay with you, Api, to ask you to formally close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for running our hui today. Thank you. Kia ora, Martin. Hope you get over your COVID.
Good, Api. Self-inflicted COVID, don't you worry, there's nothing to worry about here. Very well chaired, Tanya, Councillor Kerr.
I learned
Well,
from the best.
thank you so much for stepping in.
Ka inoi tātou. Mā te atua tātou e manake e te ake. E arahi roto tōna rangi Māori o tēnei rangi, me ngā rā heke mai nei. Nā reira, kia tau kia tātou katoa, the atu whai tō tātou ariki a i Hukraiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga teitanga ki tō wairu o tapu.
Ake. Ka mene. Lovely.